Okay then. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Luke. I'm the head of community here at Minima. I'm joined on stage by our co-founders, CEO Hugo Feiler, and also our chief architect, Spartacus Rex. We are recording this call. Once the meeting's finished, we will publish this up onto YouTube shortly. We have been collecting questions from you all in the Stage Questions channel over the weekend, and we've got a lot of good ones to dive into. If you have any questions that come up during the call, please, if I can ask you to direct them to that channel, and if we have time at the end, we will cover some of those as well. With that all said, I will hand over to Hugo and Spartacus Rex for any opening remarks. Hugo.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Luke, and welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. It's been a I wanted to sort of go through a little bit about our journey that we've been on. I mean, obviously last week was a hugely important week for us, but also as a very sort of hectic one as well. And we'll get into those questions, no doubt, shortly. But I just wanted to start off. I mean, Paddy and I have been working on this project for almost 5 years. It's a bold project, creating a truly decentralized network where everyone is equal. The removal of middlemen, centralized miners and stakers, the removal of any danger of censorship. This has fundamental benefits for both an individual level and also connected devices as well. And it's something that we've been very passionate about and remain very, very passionate about. So I'd say, regardless of the early action, we are now officially the world's most decentralized, in fact, the only completely decentralized protocol with hundreds of thousands of nodes running across hundreds of countries. And this is going to be a project that requires time to evolve and develop. And although we've launched mainnet now, this is still in very much the early stages, and it's something that we are committed to building on. The idea that everyone is being able to run a full node has been ridiculed and dismissed by many people as impossible many times. I mean, Paddy and I have had so many conversations with people saying it can't be done. But we've not shied away from taking the hard road and the challenge from a technical point of view, because we believe that the benefits for society and the world's digital truth engine is worth working hard for. And this does make life harder, trying to get everyone to run full constructing and validating nodes, but we believe that it will make us stronger when it counts. In addition to taking the technical challenge on one side, which Paddy's been doing, we've also, because we see the sort of longevity of this project, we've also taken the hard route as well in terms of the commercial and regulatory setup that we've done. We just domiciled ourselves specifically in Switzerland to ensure credibility, and also because it gives us regulatory certainty. And we've done this not to make life harder for backers, and but instead to ensure that we protect them as much as possible, so that we don't create any regulatory issues that retrospectively might cause the problem an issue. So we've always tried to do everything in the right way, and that's hopefully something that you in the community can recognise and appreciate. One of the reasons why you're backing us on this. I am acutely aware of the short-term angst caused by the price action from last week, as we launched on the exchanges, and the issues also with the network as we onboarded so many full nodes onto the network, and we can come onto those as we go through this. But I think, setting the context of it, it's important to, judging the potential of Minima based on the first week of trading is like judging the outcome of a football match based on the first 60 seconds of play. We're very much at the beginning of this, and we have strong plans for driving short-term demand and also long-term utility into the network that we believe will be create a successful future for Minima. So on that note, I'm happy to hand over to Paddy and just say hi, and then we'll get into the questions.
Yep. Thanks very much, Hugo. Hi, gang. Always a pleasure to be up here speaking to you all. So I'd like to say that last week, as far as I'm concerned, was the true birth of Minima. And I say that because, it is very important to have a price. Yeah, if you're a coin, you need to be, you need to know what you're worth. And so launching on the exchanges is almost like the final piece in the birth puzzle that is Minima. We've also started to give out the coins, and so that has started to go out. People have got native Minima, people have got wrap Minima. Yes, I know there have been some issues with that, which we are working through. I'm happy to say that no one should have lost their coins. Everything works, when we help them to do it, and I know that we have work to do on that, but that is progressing nicely. Also, yes, it is true that last week was a tough week for the community team, and that's understandable. I would say, well, welcome to crypto, and more importantly, I would say that nothing has changed. Nothing that we are saying, nothing that we are doing, the ideals that we are aspiring to, the tech that we are trying to write, the code that I am working on, the applications that I am writing, all of that is exactly as it was 2 weeks ago. And so to change completely your attitude towards Minima based on what has happened last week, I think would be slightly short-sighted. We are working very hard on the things that we can change, and we are continuing to work on all the things that we know are important. But there are some things that are out of our control. It's not up to us what the price is. This is exactly the market. I will say that at the moment is a tricky time in crypto. Obviously something's happening out there in the real world as we see the implosion of the US banking system and everything else crumbling before us. Even the big coins are having a difficult time out there. So maybe that plays a part in what is going on. It's pretty hard to squeeze through the noise of what is going on in crypto at the moment. And frankly, just the fact that we're out there, just the fact that you can now buy and sell Minima it's almost too exciting for words. So I do hope you will stick with us. We believe in what we're doing. Our tech is strong. Our ideals are the correct ones. I know that what we are trying to do here is very different to what other coins are trying to do. And as Hugo rightly said, we have also done it, from a technical point of view, we're very different, but we're also very different in terms of how well, Hugsy has set up the company. And, I know we had issues with the KYC, and it's like, you have to do that. And if you don't do that, then there may be issues later down the road. We could have just set up a simple contract and said, just do what you want. But we have seen how that plays out, looking at XRP and the rest of the unsecured, unregistered securities, et cetera, et cetera. So all of that came with its own baggage, but we managed to get to the end of it. We're through to the other side, and I feel we're actually in a stronger position than we were a week ago. We can actually start from here, moving forwards, and seeing, where we will be months, from now is, is genuine and exciting prospect. So let's get into answering some of these questions. Thank you.
Thank you both for the introductions and the remarks there. And let's dive into it. Let's get into the first of the submitted questions. This one will be towards you, I think, Hugo. This is from user Doublemon. They posted, one of the latest announcements says, we're working out options of using various mechanisms to add value and liquidity to keep the price momentum. It is in all our best interests to propel the value upwards, and we are working extremely hard to enable this, following the initial price activity. He goes on to say, any approximate date on when you are looking to start implementing these options? Are you planning on implementing DAO system for native Minima holders? When or why not?
Okay, thanks very much, Luke. So I'm going to answer most of that, and then I'm going to hand over to Paddy on the DAO question. To that point, as I say, absolutely. The critical thing is we need to drive demand for wrapped Minima and also for Minima. that is the only way that we're going to be able to affect the price on the market, because as I say, it's now an open market, and that's what we need to do. So in terms of increased reasons to hold and to actually purchase Minima, we are going to be launching a mini dApp called Maximize. This is going to be a fully collateralized, non-custodial yield mini dApp. And the way it works is that you can lock up Minima and send it, this native Minima. You can lock up native Minima and send it to a future cache where you will see your coins plus your additional coins in your wallet that will then be released in the future. So there's zero counterparty risk, and there will be favorable rates in order to effectively earn passive income with no risk to your coin levels. So what this means is that you send money in your wallet to yourself in a future cash contract, and then we add interest, and you will see those additional coins in your future locked until maturity. So effectively, for example, we have 1% for 1 month. So you put in 100 coins, and then you see in your future cash contract 101. If you lock it up for 3 months, we have 3.5%. So you see 103.5 coins in your future cash wallet, and likewise up to 1 year you'll see 118 coins in your wallet, so an 18% yield on that. And so again, this is going to be, because we're running full constructing and validating nodes, this is non-custodial loyalty yield, and it's fully collateralized, as we have the coins in order to encourage people to run a node and to hold their minima. So that's the first area that we're looking at, and our aim is to be launching this on the April the 10th. So that is 2 weeks from now. The other areas that we're looking at is to increase reasons to buy wrapped minima. So there is already a Uniswap pool in existence, but we will be creating a Uniswap liquidity provision staking pool to reward those liquidity providers in the wrapped minima pool on Uniswap to earn extra uplift for being LPs. And this will also be going live shortly after Maximize. So effectively, we're looking to drive reasons to hold and purchase Minima through Maximize, and then other reasons for those holding wrapped Minima to either buy Minima in order to be able to make use of Maximize, or that they'll be able to create an extra yield for acting as liquidity providers in the Uniswap pool. In addition to this, we also, obviously, Minima is about, the real reason that people will be running Minima nodes into the future is that the utility that the nodes require, because obviously Minima doesn't pay a reward to people for just running the node. And we already have a number of exciting and very powerful mini dApps within the dApp store. Max Solo and soon to be Max Chat is our version of WhatsApp, and this is peer-to-peer chat app with the ability to send your contacts value, and this is Minima. So it's effectively WhatsApp, but being able to send value across it. In addition to that, we also have Chatter, which is a completely decentralized Twitter, effectively a broadcast social messaging app that is completely censorship resistant, where you can then broadcast to your friends and they can then pass that onwards. So these are very powerful apps that are only made possible because of the way that Minima is built and the fact that it allows you to be a full constructing and validating node. So those are the sort of key areas that we're looking at in the short term. In the long term, we've announced our partnership with WeTransfer to build an NFT marketplace for creators to mint and complete, and have complete self-sovereign control over their content. Immutable records of provenance and the ability to create royalties moving forwards. And that's one side. But another big area for us as well is the area of the automotive industry. Minima is the only blockchain protocol that can run in full on vehicles. Vehicles also run on Android, and we already had a successful proof of concept where we've actually had full nodes running on vehicles, where they've been able to transfer messages securely between each other and then also transfer value, and also create access control via NFTs as well. And an exciting project that we are now working on, which is moving towards the end goal for that is a deployment, is EV charging with offline payments. So effectively democratizing EV charging. So we're working with the group of companies within Mobility X Lab, which includes Volvo, Geely, Seft, Polestar, Ericsson. And the project that they're looking towards is effectively, if you imagine into the future, as more and more people to move towards electric vehicles, if you own your own electric charging station at your home that you put on your wall, you will then, with the help of Minima, be able to actually, your neighbours will be able to actually charge up from the device and pay you for the electricity used, even complete strangers, because of the permissionless nature of it. You'll be able to actually charge your neighbours and anyone else who wants to use it for the electricity that you're creating for them. And one of the strengths is that what Minima does, because it runs a full constructing and validating node, is that it allows for offline payments as well. So there's lots of areas. So we have the short term for passive income, for either running a node or delivering liquidity, through to the long term partnerships that we're building. With effectively the top-down approach of bringing hundreds of thousands of devices onto the network that will be using the Minima rails to deliver their solutions to their customers.
Thanks very much, Hugsy. Okay, so I'd like to talk a little bit about this DAO question. So just to clarify what Hugsy was saying there, what he's trying to say is, how are we going to drive demand for Minima? And the truth is that the demand for a coin, must be in some way proportional to the economy that you service. And we only launched last week, as I said. That's when we started. So there really isn't much of an economy that we are servicing. So that there should be any demand at all is already, is something. Obviously, aside from the economy you service are the speculators. So how do we get people to, want to hold Minima, want to hold wrap Minima? And I think the two products that we have in testing at the moment, and to give to you, are good ones. You can earn 20% a year, 18% a year, whatever it is, on native Minima, and you'll be able to earn something by providing liquidity provision on the ETH dexes, and that's nice. And I'm looking forward to that. But the truth is that this is a marathon. It's not a sprint, and most people won't even look at a coin if it hasn't done the rounds. And what I mean when I say done the rounds is, you need to have been around for a while. You need to have survived out in the wild. We've only been in the wild for a couple of weeks, frankly. The Lindy effect, the effect that kicks in once you have shown your worth in battle, once you have proven that you can survive out in the wild, then people start to look at you, and then people start to notice you. Who looks at a coin that's only 2 weeks old? Speculators, fine. But the wider community, the greater percentage of people simply aren't going to be interested until we've been around for a while. So I do feel that needs to be said. This is a long race. It isn't going to happen overnight. So I look forward to offering you products which will drive demand for Minima and wrap Minima. But time is one of them, and that is something we cannot, force, cannot go faster. Time ticks at its own memento, and that's what we have to do. So, that is something that we have to, be conscious of. As for the question about the DAO, well, I'm going to be completely honest. I'm not a big DAO fan, frankly. I always find that it doesn't matter how many people are in a DAO, just as it doesn't matter how many miners you have. The only thing that matters is the size of the cartel that owns the controlling stake. So I'm not sure I have seen a successful DAO yet anywhere. I know there are a lot of DAOs out there, and I know that they try to do a lot of things, but they're always controlled by 2 or 3 people. It's like, that sounds pretty centralized to me, and I think you all know how I feel about centralization. So I don't really want to just copy that methodology and come out with the same system with the same flaws. I mean, at its simplest, the DAO is a set of tokens that you can send to a yes or no address and you can make a vote. I mean, there you go. Yes, you could wrap it up in a fancy mini dApp, but will you actually get any useful data out of it? Will you actually be able to do anything useful with it? So my real issue with DAOs is that I have yet to see a correctly functioning DAO. And when I do, I'll copy it. But for now, I'm still waiting. So that's my position on DAOs. But I do think the products we have for driving demand for native minima and wrap minima are good, solid, and as Hugsy mentioned, and just to re-stress, these are trust-free. These are non-custodial. When you send your money to the bond contract, which then forwards it onto the future cash contract, that is permissionless and trustless. There is nothing that anybody can do to take those coins other than send them to you, plus the interest rate that you require. So that's a really nice system, and that is at the core of everything that we do here. Trustless, permissionless, decentralized. Yeah, those are the three things that have to be there before any product we push out is launched. And that comes with its own, set of baggage. That means there are certain things that we can't do because we have to be, extra careful about it. Because frankly, if it doesn't do those things, as far as I'm concerned, it's broken. I don't want to launch broken products. I want to launch, correctly thought out protocols that deliver on what we want them to do. So I look forward to those products and I hope you will enjoy them. Thank you.
Thanks very much there, Spartacus. Thanks both actually for a very comprehensive answer to the first of what I hope will be many AMA sessions into the future. So the next question we have then is from Levox, I pronounced that right. They ask, what are your plans to be able to pump wrapped minima, at least back to the pre-sale price? I think it's probably one for you, Hugo.
Thanks, Luke. Yeah, I mean, in many ways, I guess we that in the previous question, but again, specifically on the question about wrapped minima. I mean, I guess in order to, obviously, we'll be looking to incentivize liquidity providers within the Uniswap pool, which will drive price up on that side, hopefully. But also, if we with the non-custodial yield with minima, then people will want to buy wrapped minima in order to exchange it across to minima. Initially, we'll be doing that via the Miniswap app that will be coming at the same time as Maximize. And then eventually as well, we'll have a one-way bridge where you'll be able to swap wrapped minima for minima, and that wrapped minima will be burnt basically. So those are the key areas that we're looking at in order to drive increased buy pressure for wrap minima.
Thanks, Hugo. This next question is going to be for you, Spartacus. Lewis 5C asks, can you explain what was causing many mobile devices to crash over the course of the back of last week into the weekend, and what's changing to make them more stable into the future?
Yes, I can. So basically, the traffic, the number of users, the number of messages being sent. If anybody had been looking at Block for the last 3 months, you'll have noticed that it was a ghost town with no messages at all, no transactions. Now something is happening. Now there are lots of messages being sent. And, obviously we tested this. Obviously we had setups where we were doing this and sending messages on the network, but there is simply no substitute for the real world. There is simply nothing we can do to test the wild. And it was basically a memory error. So the transactions, the number of NFTs that were being sent, a lot of people making images, those were stored in the MMR database. And I have to say that, as a coder, when this stuff was kicking off and everyone's sitting there going, what are we going to do? Late night coding sessions every evening, and you smash your head against the wall thinking, how am I going to fix this? I thought I'd already optimized this. There's no more I can squeeze out of this stone. And then, as is always the case with coding, I have found a solution presents itself, and I think you will find that the 1024 build fixes the memory issues. fixes the chain resync and the seed resync stuff. Basically, it was the H2 database interface that had a memory leak. It wasn't actually in the Minima code, and that was causing everything to break. Once you start getting memory errors, anything can break. It's a complete nightmare. And so lots of different reports about different issues were actually based upon the same thing. So what we did was what we will always do, which is that we will fix it, and we will work, tirelessly day and night, as we were sitting around at 11 o'clock on Friday night, fixing these issues and releasing it to you as soon as we can. What I will say that I'm happy about is that it does not appear, it hasn't been a sort of protocol issue. It's not something where you're all going to lose your coins and it's a total nightmare. That isn't what's happened. It was a client-side issue. Didn't affect the Dockers or the desktops. It did affect the phones. Also, just to say, there's about 10,000 different configurations of Minima running. Yeah, it's not like I've got 10,000 phones. There's so many different types of Android. It runs on my phone, but that, I agree, it doesn't matter. Does it run on all phones? And as always, I will stress that Minima is defined by the least powerful machine that can run it. Minima is defined by the fact that it should and will be able to run on everything. So when issues arise, our coding team attacks the problem, we fix the issue, we release a fix, and then you will download it and use it. And that's what we did last week, and that's what we shall continue to do. Thank you.
Okay, so the next question then is from Patrick53, and they ask, what is the circulation supply of the token right now? Now, I assume they're asking separately about wrap Minima and Minima. Hugo.
Yes, so that is true. Yes, so we have two different tokens in supply, although wrapped Minima is total number of wrapped 12.5% of the total supply, which is 1 billion coins. In current circulation, that is 5% of the total number of coins on the network. And in terms of the amount of Minima that is in circulation, although albeit not on sexes or on dexes, literally within the sort of the Minima node ecosystem, that's 20% of the total is wrap Minima. So I guess while that is a large number in some respects, because coins obviously like to have reduced amount, actually what it does mean is that we are now in a better position than if we'd only sort of had a very limited supply. So as always with these things, there's sort of pros and cons to everything. But as I say, it's 5% as wrap Minima and 20% as Minima.
Thanks, Hugo. The next set of questions are going to be for you, Spartacus. They're quite technical. It's worth actually me adding at this point that Thursday around the same time we'll be having a tech-specific AMA with Spartacus Rex. So if you do have any burning technical questions, please feel free to put those into the stage questions for Thursday. But as we have these ones, I'll go through them now. It's a three-parter. First part, I'll just say this is from user Rudolph. He asks, is it possible to build something like Handshake decentralized domains on Minima? If so, are there any plans for this? When can we expect a dashboard so that we as a community can track stats, for example, the growth of active nodes? And then thirdly and finally, the tokens that we can mint on Minima ourselves, can they also be inflationary, unlike native Minima? Paddy.
Hi there, and sweetheart, just let me tell you that I'm not quite sure I'm going to be here Thursday because I'm busy. So we'll talk about that later, but just to let the audience know. So what was the first question?
Yeah, no worries. The first question, is it possible to build something like Handshake decentralized domains on Minima?
Yeah, sorry, the ENS. Everybody loves ENS. I've got to say I'm not a fan of ENS because it's totally centralized and the contract bloats. So I guess this goes to the core of Minima. Minima does not have a global state. Minima does not have this massive database that bloats that everybody has access to. And so coming up with a DNS system, which is, domain name server, which is what Ethereum has done with the ENS, is pretty tricky. That this sort of idea of having one central contract that decides and records where everybody's names are, you have to think, is that, whenever I hear an idea and I think, look, is this going to work on Minima? Should we be doing this on Minima? I ask myself, well, is it to do with value transfer? Because that's what layer one is about. It's about value transfer. It's not about storing names. It's not a registry. It's not a computation engine. We are a validation engine. We validate transactions. That's what the layer one does. You can do stuff on layer two. We've got all the Maxima stuff and all this other amazing, technology, but simply a database that you can store any data in is not the purpose of Minima. And I would, add that this is exactly why these blockchains are bloating. This is exactly the issue I see with these chains when they try to provide you with services that are clearly not in the domain that everybody has to process everything. The idea that you have a DNS system where every single person on the network has to have every single person's, entry just doesn't make sense to me. So you could do one. You can obviously write a DNS system. I'd like to see a decentralized DNS. So instead of just having .mns, you could have .self, or you could have .where am I, or .who am I, or anybody could set up a system that just mapped a domain name to a Minima address. That is not in question. And frankly, it would be a decentralized solution, which obviously make me happy. But to somehow crowbar all that information onto the Minima blockchain, I think is the wrong approach. Nobody has yet come up with, as I would consider, a truly decentralized version of that. And when they do, I will look more in detail at that. But simply squashing all the information you can think of onto Minima, I just see as a non-starter. That's not what Minima is for. It's a validation engine, not a generic database for just storing data. And I think that's the right choice, because it means that you can all run it on your phone. Otherwise, you'd all need gigabytes of data. So I'd like a solution, but I don't see one that I like yet. Sorry, what's the next one?
Yeah. When can we expect a dashboard so that we as a community can track stats?
A simple app. Yes, sorry, the dashboard. Right. We were writing it. I think I wrote a dashboard maybe 8 months ago or something. Very simple app, and I guess what I'd like to say about this is that Minima Global, this company, the people who are writing Minima now, we are writing the base, we are writing the rails, we are trying to give you the tools and the technology for you to be able to do everything that you need to do. I don't see Minima Global's job as writing everything. I'm sorry to say, I know some people think that we should be writing everything, but that again would completely detract from the fact that we are trying to be decentralized. So when I hear about the dashboard app, it's a simple app. It's a very, it's a wonderful little mini dApp that I would love for someone to write. And I'm sure we will be giving out some grants. We could be giving out bonuses. We can incentivize this with a bug bounty for somebody to write a nice dashboard that shows you all the interesting information occurring on the Minima network. How many transactions per second? How many of them are this type? I mean, I'd like a mini dApp that the other mini dApps could communicate with, so that whenever you do something in Future Cache, or whenever you do something on any of the other mini dApps, it just appears in the dashboard. So totally possible, very simple to do. In my dreams, I wanted someone else to write it, since I have a rather large inbox at the moment and all our coders are working on other little things. We don't have an infinite budget. We don't have coders that can just do every little thing that we want, but nothing technically stopping that from happening. And actually, I suppose, in truth, what I think the issue is here is I'm going to take this one as my fault. And what I have failed to do is I have failed to provide the videos, the documentations, the explanations about how a normal person can go about writing these, very simple mini dApps. So maybe what needs to happen here is that I need to stop coding like a maniac and just take time out and do some videos and do some docs, just explaining just how simple the mini dApp system is. When I want to knock up a mini dApp, I can do it in a couple of weeks, and it's like, wow, that's really how fast and efficient the application ecosystem we have designed is. So I would say that is the issue, that we haven't, have not managed to come up with the correct incentives and instructions for anybody to create the applications they want, and I will work harder on that. Okay. Sorry about that. Luke, last part.
Yeah, cool. The tokens that the community can mint on Minima, can they also be made to be inflationary, unlike native minima?
Well, you can always attack these problems tangentially. So what I would say is you could come up with 1 trillion of a token, and then the token release mechanism would only release a certain amount of them so that the total amount circulating would increase. So no, it is not possible to add to a token once you have created it by design. So what you create is what you have to play with. I mean, you could even do it by moving the decimal place if you could be very clever. So there are ways of doing that, but it wouldn't be, I'm just going to add to the total supply. It would have to be more akin to, I have this, as we color Minima, you could think of coloring your token. So if you only had 100 of those tokens with, as you know, Minima has many decimal places, you could just have the decimal place as a state variable in the contract for the coin, and that could be moved to increase or decrease the supply by a factor of 10. So yes, I can think of ways of doing it, but it wouldn't be straightforward. I'm just going to add to those tokens. It would need to be a little bit cleverer than that. But yes, it is perfectly possible to do. I mean, on that point about what it is that you can do with Minima, I'm going to get a little bit technical here, and I hope you won't mind. Minima is Turing complete. What does that mean? I think a lot of people get confused about what that means because they expect you to be able to run the EVM and all those contracts. That isn't what a Turing complete machine is. Turing came up, Turing, the smart guy from the war, that we killed, he came up with the idea of a Turing machine. And what he did is he designed a machine that was just a ticker tape. It was a ticker tape machine, and you could move the ticker tape left and right, and you could read symbols and write symbols to this ticker tape and do simple checks, arithmetic, plus, minus. And then he wrote some very interesting mathematics that proved that if you had that ticker tape machine, you could compute anything. And then what he finally said was that, okay, so I'm going to say that if your system can emulate my ticker tape machine, if your system can emulate a Turing machine, which I have just proven can do anything, then you can do anything. So for your system to be Turing complete, what they are saying is, can you emulate a Turing machine? Minima can do that. So when it comes to what can we do with Minima, there's no limit to what you can do with Minima. You can do anything with Minima. Whether you can do it in one transaction or a sequence of transaction is the interesting bit. You can't do everything in one transaction. You can't code everything that you need to happen into one smart gate, as I call it. I consider Minima transactions to be like logic gates, just that I call them smart gates. Instead of having binary 0, 1 inputs, they have analog inputs and analog outputs. But if you can imagine a whole a whole board full of these smart gates stuck together in something that I like to think of as smart circuitry, you start to see a truly digital, electronic circuit board in front of you. That is what I see Minima transactions. That is how I see Minima applications being done. And it won't happen in one transaction, but it can happen in a sequence of transactions. And just to finish off, the point about this is, and I'll talk more about that later because I know there's a lot of interest in Omnia. Omnia allows us to take that smart circuit board and run it off-chain instantly and for free. And that's the point. So you can do anything you want with Minima. We are Turing complete. You can program any of these things to one. Is it as simple as just stuffing it into one transaction and being able to write it? No. Do you have to be, slightly more tangential and a little bit more creative in your thinking? Yes. But is that ability, you've got to think that computers run on chips. Yeah, everything runs on chips, and Minima allows you to basically design circuit boards of analog chips. So given that idea, given that methodology, you can sort of see how it would be possible to run anything. You would actually be able to create a Z80 chip as a certain smart circuit board, and then you could run your program on that. So I love all these ideas. I'm sorry we haven't managed to write them for you. As I said, we are very busy and we do lots of things, but there's nothing you can't do. We've given you everything you need to do anything you want, but it may require a little bit of creative thinking to actually pop the answer out at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Spartacus. And it is worth saying that, yes, we will be looking at putting together and publishing for all of you helpers, docs and explainers so that you can have a go at building your own mini dApps, which I know that once we have that, you'll see how simple it really is. And yes, we do have a scheme in place where if you have an idea of something you want to build on Minima, you can submit that to us, and we can provide grants to people that want to, or teams that are looking to develop. So have a look at our website.
Sorry, Luke, just to say that the most important bit, just to say, you may have noticed that all the mini dApps you use are called something dash version number .mds.zip. That's the file that you download. And that is very specific why we chose that file extension, because originally we called them .mini dApps. Yeah, and that sort of confused people, because the point about the .mds.zip file is that it is a zip file. That is all it is. And if any of you can remember the birth of the internet, if any of you remember how it was at the beginning when we could just view the source code of any web page, and that was what taught us how to write on the web. We all shared our code with each other. This isn't like an executable that you compile and then I get a sort of gobbledygook assembly out at one end. This is actually the code that you're writing in the code that it is written. There's HTML pages, there's JavaScript, etc., etc. So the first port of call for somebody who wishes to write a mini dApp is look at our mini dApps. They're completely open source. When you have the .mds.zip, unzip it. Look inside it. How do they write it? How have we written it? What are the code? What have we done? That is by design. Yeah, I want the system to be open. I want you all to be able to copy what I've done and rejig it, reskin it, reuse it, reamplify it, do whatever you want with it. And that is exactly why the mini dApp system is written in the way that it is. But that is the first port of call. All the mini dApps you have all the source code. You can do whatever you want with them.
Absolutely. And we've always said, if you can build a basic website, you can build a mini dApp. It's a very low bar to entry. And we're all excited to see what the community start to produce. The next question is from Vamps, and I will set this point that some of these questions may start to retread some of the answers we've already given. So to both of you on stage with me, if that is the case, by all means, quicker answers are absolutely fine. So the question from Vamps then is, how do you cope when there is unfortunate news about Wrapped Minima, for example, pre-sale and market launch price considerations?
So I mean, as I say, you have to. We've been over lots of bumps in the road in order to get to mainnet, so we're quite used to that, and having a fantastic team supporting us across the community, marketing, and also the tech teams for the various headwinds we encountered. So we are ready for that, and as I said, a bit to your point, Luke, as already mentioned, I mean, the critical thing is to create short-term incentives with regard to holding Minima and also purchasing Minima in order to earn yields if I maximize, and then also the liquidity staking pool incentives as well. And then really it's about sort of digging down and getting on with the long-term partnerships that we have been building for the last 12 to 18 months, and also driving awareness and usage of the mini dApps as well, because obviously that helps secure the network, creates interest and fun. I mean, there's no other node that you can run on your phone where you can actually mint an NFT directly from your device. That's the only possible with Minima because of it's the fact that it's running a full node. So there's lots of really interesting, exciting and powerful things that Minima can achieve. So we'll be promoting those things into the future to bring new people on board and to keep people here.
Thanks.
I cry and suck my thumb. No, I don't. What I do is I think about what people are getting upset about, and I wonder whether that's what upsets me. And as I said at the beginning of this conversation, that's not what upsets me. I have things that keep me awake at night. I haven't slept right for 3 years, but it isn't, we've managed to launch the network, we've given out the native Minima, we've given out the wrap Minima, there's actually a market happening. We're on the exchanges, there are people using the Minima network to create NFTs and send them to each other. That to me is wonderful news. I'm blown away by what we have achieved so far and look forward to what we will achieve in the future. But when people stress about certain things, I ask myself if it is something that I stress about. And so far, I see nothing to get stressed about. And I see this as the birth of a long journey, and this is how it was always going to be. This is crypto. This is how the cookie crumbles. So that's what I do. Thanks.
And I would just add from the community perspective, the community is everything to us. And when you are unhappy, that does affect us, and we don't want you to feel that way. So we will then do everything that we can to bring that back. Spartacus, Bamps also asks, if we stop the nodes, will our wallet status still be alive? Will it become slower in terms of transactions? I'm presuming you're talking about the network here. If all member activity nodes are stopped, and how do we respond to that if it happens?
Minima is its community. We don't run the infra for Minima. You run the infra. All the people on the network are the Minima network. If all of you turn your nodes off, there is no Minima community. So that, unfortunately, is black and white, 0-1. But that is our strength. They're saying, look, what if all the people who run Minima stop running Minima? Well, what do you think is going to happen? Do I see that happening? No. Do I think that number is only going to go up? Yes. So if you stop running your node, then you have left the network. We haven't managed to entice you. That's your choice, and so be it. But Minima, we are not in charge of this network. That is the point of Minima. You are in charge of this network. You are the ones that run the network. And the more of you that run it, the stronger and bigger we become. And the less of you that run it, then the smaller and less powerful we become. It's a very simple equation. Unlike other networks, I might add. Minima is unique in this fact where you are actually the network. There is no massive infrastructure running the back end of this. You are the massive infrastructure running this. So I hope you will continue to run it.
Thank you. Name You Say asks, or says, actually it's more of a statement, it's a financial loss for the people who participated in the pre-sale, and those are the people who actually paid to support you. You say it's not your responsibility. As an official team, that's lame. As the price goes down, more and more people will close their nodes because it isn't profitable. This project will die. Very drastic words there. Hugo.
Yeah, well, I mean, firstly, I can understand why someone thinks that would be lame. I mean, as I say, the first thing to say, as you'll hopefully have seen from, what we've been building and what the community reaction is that we do take this very seriously. At the same time, we're in an open market. So now what we need to do is work hard to build up confidence, build up reasons to buy Minima, and to keep running as well. Maximize will help us keep running Minima. The liquidity staking pool will help us drive people to want to hold wrapped Minima. And again, we're very much in this for the long term. This is something that we have been building, for 5 years, but also, this is something that we really have belief in, that is actually going to, have real value. I mean, we talk about blockchain, and blockchain was, the Bitcoin white paper was all about taking out the middlemen. Yet middlemen are there in their droves in terms of miners and stakers and other chains. And we believe that the really strong part of Minima is that it literally takes away those. So the value of a blockchain is only its ability to deliver censorship resistance through decentralization. And that's what we're looking to achieve. So we're looking to build short-term equilibrium via the mini dApps, but then also long-term utility via our partnerships and mini dApps as well. So we're very much here to make it a success. So appreciate the sentiment, but again, hopefully you can appreciate that we're working hard to make this work.
Yeah, I'd just like to add, just to put a little bit of perspective into this situation, price. People are interested about price. This one number that seems to define us absolutely. If you go to the Bitfinex book and you look at the depth of the book, the sell orders up to 30 cents is 50 grand. That's nothing. I mean, it's a very, very thin book. What I'm saying is that if one whale turned up and did one buy of 50K on Bitfinex, we'd be at 30 cents. So, it's not like we have $1 million wall. It's not like we have the depth of a book of one of the big boys out there. We have a very, very thin book. And frankly, The movement of the coin price at the moment is up in the air. It is with the wind. If somebody wanted to come along and buy any amount of Minima, then the price would go up. It goes both ways. So I do not see this as a hindrance or an issue. This is just part of the game. People are sitting back, waiting, want to know what happens. That's absolutely to be expected. There is no fundamental reason why Minima cannot go up. There is nothing in the book that dictates that it's not possible for the price of Minima to go above a certain price. And when you look at these books, and I don't know how many of you can understand that stuff, but it's pretty simple. And the current book on Bitfinex will go up to 30 cents with a 50K order. So that's pretty small to me, frankly. That's like one Bitcoin order. So I see this as just birthing pains, lads. That's all that's happening. Thank you.
Thanks both. Got a few similar questions here from Cody, Sheepskull and Dollar McCann. So I'll just take one of them. For those of us who have coins in the wallet, we want to keep the node running. But for some people, they have sold their coins. And so what's the motivation for them to keep running the node? If they all leave and no new plan is in place for newcomers, what's the future of Minima?
Great question, but I would have thought it's quite obvious. So Maxima applications do not require you to have any Minima. And whenever you use a Maxima application, all the messages you send over Maxima strengthen the network, because as I'm sure you are all aware, when you send a Maxima message, you mine that message as if you were mining a transaction, and you add that hash to the overall hash rate of the network. So it is perfectly possible for somebody to be a Minima user who has no Minima at all. It is perfectly possible for someone to say, you know what, I don't want any Minima, but I like Chatter, so I'm going to use Chatter. And that's absolutely fine. I push for that. I want that. I incentivize that, because it is not a requirement that you hold any Minima at all. You don't need any private keys. You don't need any public keys. You don't need any of that to use Maxima applications. And when we write Max Chat, which is Max Solo was a proof of concept, and I think it's been fun to write, but we really need to write an application that is the clone of WhatsApp. They spent billions refining and coming up with the ultimate interface for what people expect a chat application to be. And I can say that because every other chat application looks just like WhatsApp. So if we had an application called Max Chat, and if that application looked and worked like WhatsApp, people could just use that. They wouldn't even have to know that they're running. I mean, they would be running Minima in the background, because you have to do the work and you have to send the you have to send the Maxima message, which requires you to do some work. But that is an incentive to run it, and you don't need any Minima at all. So I guess what we have to do is come up with some, wonderful mini dApps that incentivize people to use them. They don't even have to be mini dApps. These could be native applications. You could write a native Max Chat Android application that was exactly a WhatsApp clone, that interfaced with the Minima client over RPC, SSL, password, all of that secure, and they could just use that, and that would be totally fine. We as Minima users would want that, because every time they send a message, they are securing the network, and ergo securing your coins, and ergo adding to the overall security of the network, and ergo making the network more secure, and ergo making the amount of value that we can store on the network greater, ergo making the value of the entire network greater. So lots of reasons why you might want to continue to use Minima, even if you don't have any Minima coins themselves.
Thank you. That was a great answer. Blue Eyes, I'm going to paraphrase this one. Blue Eyes asks, what is Minima's plan to attract new users and investors given the disappointing open? Do we have any special surprises planned within 2023? And I think short-term measures we've covered pretty comprehensively at this point, but is there anything else that either one of you would like to add?
Yes, Luke, thank you for that. Yes, absolutely. We've covered the term. I mean, the long term, there are a couple of key things that we are looking to deliver in 2023. The first is our Rosetta integration, which is effectively the middleware that allows native layer ones to integrate with centralized exchanges. Obviously, to begin with, we have launched with wrapped Minima on the centralized exchanges. The reason we did that is because it's a sort of chicken and egg with the exchanges. they have a huge number of coins looking to list. If they're EVM compatible, then it's literally a week's integration. If it is a layer one, and especially a layer one that is decentralized as Minima, then it is a huge tech task, and we get put to the bottom of the queue with their dev resource unless we have the trading volumes and the activity that we can prove that we are a coin of that they can bump up and list for. So that's one of the main reasons why we listed with Wrapped Minima to begin with. But we are now integrating or started the process of integrating with Rosetta so that we can then add native Minima to centralized exchanges. The second area that we are working on is an iPhone integration. Obviously, as everyone knows, we started with Android and desktop. Android is much more straightforward to build this kind of tech. iPhone is much harder because of the restrictions that Apple puts on it. But there are solutions, and we are working on integrating for those. So those will be key areas, they're not less of a surprise, but more of a sort of excitement, I guess, in terms of us building those into the future.
And I guess I'd like to say that if you ask me what needs to, I mean, I've said this before, and I'm not sure if you've heard me say this before, but we are not the ones who will write the killer dApp. I wish that were the case, but I know it's not. And so really what Minima, as I have said, Minima Global, the company, what that needs to do is it needs to reinforce, strengthen, create the rails, the interface, the communications, the documentation to allow you all to write whatever application it is that you want. And frankly, I hope that one of you does something that blows my socks off. I am waiting with bated breath for that day to come. And as I said earlier, I think it's incumbent on me and the rest of the tech team to come up with better solutions for you all to start writing, the millions of applications that because 100 people can write an application. Only one of them needs to be killer for you to have the killer dApp. Now, we can try writing 100 applications, and each of them will be, thin and rubbish and not well looked after, and we'll just spread ourselves far too thinly over all of these different projects. Or we can give you the tools required to write these applications, to come up with wonderful products, to do the AMAs, to do the DEXs, to do all the wonderful things that I know, as I see out there, it is abundantly clear you are capable of doing. So for me, I really want to do a nice Minima IDE, like the Remix IDE on Ethereum. I really want to do some way of making it. I want a mini dApp that allows you to write mini dApps. I want a mini dApp that allows you to write and test smart contracts. I want our layer 2 solution to kick off. Minima and Omnia, which hasn't been mentioned yet. Minima and Omnia are the same. Omnia is simply the Lightning network that runs over Minima. We are compatible with that today. Now, have we written any applications? We have started to write applications, and the basic one is just to send money between users as many times as you want, instantly and for free. But what makes Minima so exciting is that the scripting language allows you to do so much more. What is really exciting is that it should be possible to truly write complicated, decentralized applications that run at speed, as in instantly, for free, between a small party of users and a small subset of coins. And we need to write the tools that allow you to do that. We need to write the infra that shows you how it is possible for you to do that. We need to incentivize you either through grants, through bounties, through whatever. And then I think exciting things will happen. I think simply waiting for us to come up with something is an uphill battle. Whereas expecting us to come up with the tools that you need to write this is absolutely on the cards and something that we can do.
Excellent. Thank you both. I'm conscious of time. I know you have other calls lined up, and we haven't been able to get through all of the questions today. So we will revisit them at a later date and get them all covered off, particularly questions around Omnia, which I know is a burning line of questioning within those that we haven't gotten to yet. So thank you both to you, Hugo, and to Spartacus for your time this afternoon. I hope that the questions that we have been able to get to answer today have helped those of you listening to see the direction of where we're going and the general travel, and if nothing else, reiterated how hard we are all working to deliver the reality of the promise of Minima. So thank you all again. I'll bring this session to a close, and I look forward to speaking to you all again this time next week. Thank you.
Don't thank us, Luke. Thank the community for listening in. Thank you so much. I know we can get there, small steps, big steps, mini by name, mega by nature.
Yeah, thanks, Paddy. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening, and I really appreciate your support. And excited to be getting our short-term and our long-term goals out there to drive demand for Minima. So thank you for your support again, and we look forward to chatting soon.
Thank you all.